Welcome to One Man's Tracks. Today we've got another moody alt-rock record for you. This group's made up primarily of siblings Sam and Gert Bettens from Antwerp, Belgium. They were offered their first recording contract through Sam's work under his previous name, Sarah Beth, working on movie soundtracks. They were originally just called The Choice, and they released their debut record in '94 titled The Great Subconscious Club. While touring that record and supporting the Indigo Girls in the States, they learned of another band with the exact same name, and so they had to go through the alphabet and decide what letter sounded best to give ownership to The Choice. K's Choice's soothing brand of sometimes grungy, sometimes folky alt-rock broke through on this. Their 1995 follow-up record, through Double T Music. This is K's Choice's Paradise in Me. Propelled by the immediacy of its hit lead single, An Addict, the emotion and the melodies performed by Sam's enigmatic voice do tend to burn a little bit slower on some other parts of this record, but just play really well into the right context. Whether it be a stormy day or you're driving home after a long day's work, K's Choice seemed to have a knack for smoothing out bumps and shaking off shivers. And really no better way than to kick things right into gear with that huge hit single, Not an Addict. I may have called it immediate a minute ago, but I guess it does take a minute to build up to that confessional, rebellious rockin' plateau that absolutely shreds not only heartstrings, but it'll shred your eardrums too, because you'll be playing it at full volume and singing along by the time you hear the second chorus. Now, a sound that only you can hear is closer to what you can expect on the rest of this LP. Sam's voice sounds like a bit of a gruffer Alanis Morissette. This one, like I said, burns a little bit slower with more fluctuations in energy throughout, but still it ends off with a full blasting, enveloping wall of post-grunge sound that is not to be missed. White Kite Fauna is a more softer, thoughtful folk-rocky cut with more emphasis on the vocals. The lyrics seem to depict the closeness of nature's primal presence, and it depicts it in a hauntingly matter-of-fact fashion. From there, the band lightens up, at least instrumentally, to a almost pop-rock sound on Mr. Freeze. The lyrics, however, remain dark and pretty depressing, almost more of a comfortably numb, apathetic feeling, and how that can almost be worse than a state of depression. I'm almost certain Song for Catherine is the same Catherine that this album has a dedication to in the liner notes. It's a lovely, revelatory piece that's about some sort of cryptic, ever-present, ever-loving presence. You can call it God or whatever you want. They don't nail it down in the lyrics here. Just a nice breath before diving back into the album. There's a spoken word intro that weaves in and out of the mix throughout to this day that comes from a 1963 novel by Julio Cortázar. It's meant to be a multiple ending but never-ending search through unanswerable questions, sort of a counter novel. So meaning isn't something I'm searching for in this one, but interestingly enough, the sort of stream of consciousness approach that the book has that they apply to this song fits really nicely, and it's a grunge rocky, almost country rock instrumental that adds just a really nice chapter into this story. Ominous, reverbing synths followed by a buzzing bass line, and then the guitar screams in and the drums slam on iron flour. I hear zombie every time I hear this song. I'm not a huge Cranberries fan, but I have to admit that that song does rock. If you are a fan of that track at all, I highly, highly recommend this one. It's a heavier highlight for sure. The classic topic of unrequited love comes up on the track Wait. It's a pretty stripped-back, acoustic-focused ballad that is helplessly hopeful, but I think it drags on a little too long. Maybe it's par for the course and it goes with the theme of the song, but for me, I'm just ready to move on by like the 4-minute mark here. Open up your eyes! The title track is actually the shortest and just over 2 minutes long, but it still packs a rockin' message of anti-consumerism that urges people to see the paradise that surrounds us. Just open up your eyes and look. It's right there, and it's worth taking care of and loving. My record company hits on another common theme for alt-rockers. It's dealing with the over-controlling scum of the music industry and the need to just shake their hands and agree to their shady dealings. I know it's probably still a dirty business, but at least with the internet now there's the small possibility of some independence. Where White Kite Fauna was heavier lyrically and Mr. Freeze was more depressing, they were presented in a little bit more of a detached manner and had hooky, melodious choruses. Now, Only Dreaming is more intimate, more ominous feeling. It's almost like being a helpless child that's being kidnapped, snuck up upon, and just taken. Ooh, little shivers that I said they get rid of came right back for a second. Now for another ballad, this time with some piano accompaniment. Sam's voice is confessing and coming to terms with past disputes and trying to connect with the title of the song is Dad. Unfortunately, the context of the song leads me to believe that Dad has passed away at this point, and it's sort of a song to yourself, a bit of a tearjerker, but at the same time it has a bit of an uplifting sense to it. I think it's a great closing track. If it were the closer, it feels like it is just before, I guess, the encore of the last 2 tracks, Old Woman and Something's Wrong. I guess even with the big energy shift, Old Woman is a pretty appropriate follow-up to Dad. It's this power pop punk energy that slams you right into gear again. It's about an old woman who's tragically lost her husband and is riding down the highway in her wheelchair, basically preparing to join him. Then closing this thing out for real with a live recording of a call and response, sort of tongue-in-cheek song titled Something's Wrong. It's got some appropriate lines like, when your president's an actor, something's wrong. And then there's some much less appropriate lines like, when your girlfriend's got a penis. It's particularly strange given Sam's recent transition. It really makes that song age pretty poorly. It does end off with, if you think that this song matters, something's wrong. And so obviously they don't put a lot of weight on it, but Sam, at the time of the recording of this record, was actually known as Sarah Bettens, and in just 2019 she began her transition, began taking hormone replacement therapy, and she's actually documented the journey. He's actually documented the journey now on his YouTube channel. I've linked it down below along with this and anything else I've mentioned. Pretty interesting to see that when you transition a little bit later on in your life, your voice, especially as a female to male transition, doesn't seem to be changing all too much, with him still able to perform a strong majority of these tracks, maybe with a slightly lower range, but the band can compensate. Since his transition, Sam's formed the group Rex Rebel and has recently released a single showing that not a whole lot has changed vocally, so there is still hope of you hearing your favorite K's Choice songs live. Have you ever watched a concert? What are your experiences of listening to K's Choice? Do you know of any other great Belgian groups I should hear about? Let me know. Leave a comment down below and while you're here, make sure you've liked and you're subscribed for next week's Thrift Shop CD review. Thanks so much for joining me this week. It's not a habit, it's cool, I feel alive. If you don't have it, you're on the other side. I'm not an addict, baby, that's a lie.